Hi guys, my name is Karthik and I am from executeautomation.com and welcome to another video of our weekend video series. And today we're going to talk about CodeceptJS. So CodeceptJS is not an all new tool. It's available for almost a couple of years now. A lot of companies are now trying to adapt this CodeceptJS. The reason being CodeceptJS is not like a new tool altogether. Rather, it's going to use your existing tooling infrastructure. For instance, if you're using Puppeteer or Protractor or testcafe or Selenium, you can use CodeceptJS on the top of it and you can execute your code from there. So it's going to be like a best practice framework going to run on these tools, and it's going to make your life of executing those tests much easier and even sophisticated, like multiple executions in the same time, parallel execution, multiple browser support, running with cool reporting stuffs. All those things are going to come as an essence with the CodeceptJS. So CodeceptJS is basically like a framework on the top of a framework. So you can utilize the power of your existing tooling and test without breaking them or maybe enhancing them much easier using this CodeceptJS. So basically CodeceptJS says it's a supercharged end-to-end testing with tools of your own choices. That's it. And today, I'm not really going to talk a lot of theory. Rather, the agenda is going to look something like this. We are going to talk about the installation, getting started, writing our first code, and also working with identifiers, interactive parser, REPL, running in multiple browsers, reporting, and finally we'll conclude our whole discussion and we'll see how easy CodeceptJS is to adapt and things of that nature. So this is going to be the agenda, and we'll jump in right into the tools installation and we'll see how we can actually make use of this CodeceptJS with Puppeteer. So I'm going to take Puppeteer as a tooling of choice and we'll see how this can be improved. So basically I have taken the word from Mahesh, who is from Wellington, who lives in New Zealand as like me, and not just him, and also a couple of other friends like you have asked me to create this video. So I'm just going to create this video for this weekend and we'll see how it goes. We can probably create a part 2 or part 3 if the response is really good, and we'll see how we can extend this video in multiple weekends. Well, as that said, let's jump into this installation, getting started, and write our first code and see how things work. So for that, I'm gonna flip to my Mac operating system right now. All right, so as you can see, this is the CodeceptJS website. So this is codecept.io, and this is the same thing that I was talking about. It is a supercharged end-to-end testing framework, and it has so many different features as you can see. It's scenario-driven, driver agnostics, interactive debugging, and rich locators, page object, and blah blah blah. And you can see the tools it supports is like webdriver, Puppeteer, testcafe, protractor, Appium, and even more basically. And you can see the documentation of this tool is really good. You can see there is a quick start option. It tells you what you really need to do for Puppeteer or Nightmare, things of that nature. And also you can see there is a detailed guide on each and every toolings and stuff, which is very handy, very easy. So whatever I'm going to talk about today is going to be directly from this documentation, because I personally think that this tool is very good in terms of the documentation. I have not really used this in my work, but I think that this is something that we can try it out for a smaller project and see how it basically works. Well, as that said, I'm just going to jump in the quick start guide, and we'll do the installation as mentioned in here, and we'll follow and see how we can really get around with our first test. As that said, I'm just gonna go to the item terminal that I got, and I'm just gonna create a directory. I'm gonna call this as CodeceptJS demo, and I'm just gonna go to the CodeceptJS demo, and then I'm just going to open the Visual Studio Code. But before doing that, as you can see in here, they have mentioned that you need to create an empty npm project using this command. So I'm just going to copy paste this command so that it creates a package.json file for you. So if you just open the Visual Studio Code, you can see that you now have a package.json file under that particular folder, which is nothing but the CodeceptJS demo folder. Right? So it's kind of plain and empty, and now we can play around and install whatever that we need to really install. So here we are going to be installing the first one, which is nothing but the CodeceptJS Puppeteer, and we're going to save in the developer dependency. So you can see that it is now saving or maybe fetching the CodeceptJS and the Puppeteer for us. Alright, so now the installation is almost done. So if I just go to my Visual Studio Code, you can see that the node_module is sitting in here. And you can just drill down all the way and you can see that we can see this CodeceptJS is sitting in here. So you can directly go to the bin folder and then you can start the CodeceptJS. Then everything is going to happen for you. So this is where things are going to be very, very interesting. So this is basically like a program.command, which is going to execute based on the command line option that you're going to be basically performing an action over there. So you can see that it requires a commander, which means you can basically play around with your command option to perform those operations. But the easiest way that they have given in the documentation itself is to go with the npx command. But if your npx has some issue, you can probably go through this .bin of the CodeceptJS. But I feel in my machine, the npx is working without any problem. So I'm just going to copy this guy and I'm just going to paste it over here, the npx CodeceptJS of init, which means it's going to start initializing. So it says these command line option for us to prepare our test environment. Where are your tests located? So I'm just going to leave this as it is. And it asks me, what helper do you want to use? WebDriver, Puppeteer, testcafe, protractor, nightmare, or Appium. So I'm going to go with Puppeteer this time because that's what the community is looking for right now. But we can probably talk about the other toolings later. But as of now, for this weekend, we can go with Puppeteer. So I'm just going to choose Puppeteer. And it says, where should you log your screenshot and reports and stuff? So I'm just going to leave this as it is to the output folder. And would you like to extend the IE object with a custom stub? So if you ask, what is this IE basically? Well, it's something like a BDD kind of fashion where it says IE, navigate to the page, I am on the page, I fill the form, something like that. So it's something like that kind of jargon in here. So I'm just gonna say Y for now, and I'm just gonna place the custom stub in over here. And the localization is also asking me which language I'm gonna go with. So you can see that there are so many different languages available, and the one which I'm gonna go with is English because I don't know any other language, by the way. And then it asks me which base URL of the site to be tested. So this is the URL of your application that you're basically going to be testing. I'm just going to go with my demo site. So I'm just going to go over here, the executeautomation.com demo site /login.html. And then it asks me whether you want to show the browser window, because Puppeteer by default runs test in headless mode. So it is asking you whether do you want to go with the browser to be displayed or not. So you can see that now there is this Puppeteer coming in, which means it is very specific for the browser configuration of the Puppeteer. So I'm just going to say yes. And there you go. It's done. That's it. And now our configuration is basically done. And now if you just go back to the Visual Studio Code, let's try to minimize this a little bit. You can see that the Codecept configuration is being created over here. And then there is this JS config, which says allow JS to true for the compilation option. And this is the step definitions, which is being created and stuff. And the output folder is empty because we don't really have anything else right now. But if we want to create our test, we can probably create our test our own by creating a new file, or there is an option called npx CodeceptJS GT. So this is nothing but the get started kind of stuff. So if you just do that, it will ask you what tests are going to be creating. So it's asking you to enter the file name. So I'm just going to say login and play around. That's my test name. And what is the feature? So login and navigate. That's going to be my feature name of the applications being tested. And then boom, you can see that it has just created a new file called login and play around _test.js file. And if I go over here, you can see that my test is currently sitting, which is pretty cool. So it automatically created a feature and a scenario, and Visual Studio Code is much intelligent enough to show us the intelligence of what is this thing's all about. So basically this feature is more like a describe block or a suite block that we have used in many other testing framework like Mocha or Jasmine and stuff. It's going to be pretty much like the same thing. And there is a scenario. It's again like a Codecept scenario where you can write some test, and then there is this I that we are passing in to perform the operation. So if I type I and if I hit dot, you can see that we get an intelligence which is going to be very, very handy and useful for writing our tests. So that's it for the installation and getting started for now. So I have created a checklist of what I'm currently doing. So we have did the installation and getting started, and we're going to write our first code right now, and we'll see how things work. So the first code that we'll be writing is the login operation. So the login to demo site, and I'm just gonna type I dot, and now I need to navigate to the page, and I want to be on a page. So I am on page. So there is a method like this where you can specify the URL of your application. So if you specify the slash, you can see that it is going to take from the URL of the configuration file, and we already know that there is a configuration sitting in over here, CodeceptJS. So let's try doing this. I'm just going to type slash, I'm going to save this, and now if I want to execute this code, how do I really execute this code? So I'm just going to open a terminal over here, and let me make this a little bigger, and now if I want to type something within the terminal for running the test, all I have to do is npx CodeceptJS, and then there is an option called run, and I'm gonna say steps. So this will tell me to execute all the steps sitting within this particular scenario. So this is how basically you run a test in CodeceptJS. So if I hit enter, you can see that it is gonna log in, navigate, that's the feature name, and then it opened the application. There you go, it's done. I could see that the application just navigated and it says not found. So maybe it is not navigating to the right page or something like that, because I have just given the slash over here. So what if I just go to the Codecept configuration over here and copy this thing, and or maybe cut this thing and go over here and paste this login.html over here, and if I hit run, there you go. Now I could see that it could able to log in using this login.html file. So this is basically like a subdirectory navigation that we are doing within our page. So that's for the navigation within our page, and then we are going to work with the identifiers. So basically these two things are gonna go hand in hand. So I'm just gonna write a lot of code for the identifier itself. So the first one is the EA demo site. So I'm just gonna type the EA demo site, and this is the username and the password text box. So we can directly identify using the name or ID or XPath or CSS, and this is the button that we'll be identifying as well. So in order to fill or type the value over there for the text box, there is an option called type, no, or send keys, no. Then there is an option called fill field. So this fill field basically says that you're going to be writing some text or entering some value within the field using any one of these locators, something like label, name, CSS, XPath, or strict locators. So what is this strict locator? Basically it says this is a locator that I'm looking for that you specify strictly in a double quotes. So if you don't say that, you can specify the CSS or XPath, or by default the fuzzy logic of this particular code identifier directly takes based on this order, like label, name, and CSS and XPath and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to identify using its name, which is nothing but the username, and I'm going to type a value called admin. And similarly, I'm also going to type the password. So I'm just going to say password. There we go. That's it. So this way it's going to enter the value for the admin for the username and the password. So let's try to run this code and see what's really going to be happening. You can see it typed. Very good. So now we can also see that what's really happening behind the scene during our code execution, which is pretty cool. So we can see a verbose information coming for us in here as well. It's also really good. The next one is I need to click this particular login button. So why don't we just go with a strict identifier or the locator this time? So instead of going with the existing name and kind of stuff, I'm just gonna go with the XPath for this particular submit button. So in order to identify this XPath, all I have to do is /input at type is equal to submit. So if I do that, I could able to identify that as well. So in order to click the button, I need to do this. There is an option called click. So this way it's gonna click. So there is no big change, at least in the naming convention for this. At type is equal to submit. That's it. So this is gonna click the button, and then it is gonna see how the page is gonna be logging and stuff. So let's see what's going to be basically happening. Oops, it was very fast, so we couldn't able to see anything happening. So how to actually see things and stuff, whether it has logged in or not, I can probably do something like a wait for the element. So I'm just gonna do a wait this time. So there is something called as wait for element, or wait for detached, wait for clickable, enabled, function, invisible, navigation, request response. Oh my god, there are so many different waits available over here. So I'm just gonna go with the element this time, and the element that I will be waiting for maybe is the initial or something like that. So I know what its XPath is gonna be. So I'm just gonna use its XPath to identify that particular element. So in order for going through the XPath, I can explicitly also specify something like this. As you can see, you can specify CSS, or you can specify XPath, which is pretty cool, right? So I can do that, something like this. So I'm gonna wait for this initial, and then I will quit the particular search. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take a screenshot whether this really happened or not. So I can just do this, and I can say logged in .jpg. So this way it's going to take a screenshot for me once the login has been happened or something like that. So you can see it's logging in. There you go. And we got a screenshot in our output folder. So if I click this, you can see that it took a screenshot for us once the login operation was successfully done. Pretty awesome, right? So this is also very, very interesting in the CodeceptJS. And the next one is I need to select something like a checkbox or a drop-down option, or maybe I need to select an option button, something like that. So these are some of the complex controls sitting in here. Not complex anymore, but still kind of a complex thing. So I will be doing that as well. So what I'm going to do is I need to select option. So you can see it's very, very straightforward and simple. All we're going to do is let's say I'm going to choose CSS this time. So CSS selector for this particular drop down button. So if I just select this, so you can see this is a select, and it has a name as title ID. So I can just do select of name as title ID in the CSS, and we'll see how it can be done. Oops, that's it. So this is going to be selecting the CSS, and I'm going to be selecting maybe Mr. dot from this. So MR dot. So this is going to be selecting a Mr. for me there. So that's for the drop down option selection. So I can also take a screenshot here and see what's really going to be happening. Save screenshot .jpg. Hopefully this code is going to work, because for sure the selector is correct and the option is also correct. You can see that it has selected and select option has chosen Mr. over there, which is pretty cool. Right. And then how to choose the checkbox and the option button. For doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm not really going to be typing the code this time. Rather, we are going to discuss about this feature, the interactive pass and REPL feature. So what is this interactive pass basically? Within CodeceptJS, there is a method called pass, which you can use anytime within your code, which is very, very interesting and handy. And I'll tell you what it basically does for you. So you can just run this particular code, and at any point of time, you can see that the test actually passes something like this over here. And the magic happen is, if you just move your screen a little bit, you can see that it says interactive shell started. So using JavaScript syntax to try steps in action. So you can do all sort of stuff here. So you can just do something like an option selection within this particular way very easily. So let's say if I want to select Hindi checkbox over here, so I can just do a CHE double tap. You can see it brings me up the check option, which is pretty cool, which is nothing but for the checkbox. And then I can just type Hindi, and now you can see that the checkbox is not selected yet. And now if I type enter, you can see that the checkbox Hindi is being selected, which is pretty cool, right? So this is something like a REPL or interactive shell operation which performs an action and ensure to you that the code that you're writing is always correct using the identifier. And this way you can keep filling your code over here as well. So now as we know that this particular code is correct, I can just type this for checking the box of the Hindi there. And similarly, if I want to select this particular option as female there, you can do that as well. Or if I want to type the first name as Karthik, something like that. So I can just fill field and I'm going to say first name as Karthik. I'm going to hit enter. And you can see that the Karthik has been entered. Pretty awesome. So this way, you can see that CodeceptJS, even though it is running a Puppeteer test, it runs as a framework on the top of Puppeteer and makes or brings all those magical operations for us within itself, which is pretty cool. So this way we can leverage our power of execution or increase our efficiency of developing code much easily. That's what I feel once I saw this tool. All right, so this way we can keep on writing our code to see how our code is actually going to be working, which is pretty awesome. And that's what is this interactive shell is all about. So I'm just going to type exit, which is coming out from the interactive shell. And you can also see that this is going to store your command into this particular CLI history so that you can copy paste the code that you have written over there. So this is more like a Xamarin option. If you have worked in Xamarin.UI test, this is the same exact stuff available. And that's exactly what it is looking like as well. Cool. Well, that's what is about this interactive shell operation within the CodeceptJS. And the next one is running in multiple browsers. So how do we basically run this in multiple browsers and how things are going to be basically happening? So in order to enable execution within multiple browser in CodeceptJS, all you're going to do is change the configuration of the CodeceptJS a little bit. So as you can see, this particular export.config is the one place responsible for doing all those magical operations for us. And now if I want to run in multiple browsers, I can just specify multiple, and then I can just specify basic. So this is anything that you can give, not just basic. You can give advanced if you want. If you can give smoke if you want, or whatever name that you want to specify, you can give that. This is just like a tag that you're going to be identifying. And then I'm going to specify Chrome and maybe Firefox, something like this. That's it. So this way, it is going to execute our test within different browsers, which is actually available for us. So how to execute this particular code is the next question. All you're going to do is run. Instead of run, you now have something called as multiple, and then just give basic. So this basic is the tag that we have specified. So if I just select this particular tag as basic, and if I hit enter, you can see that it opens the test in this particular browser. Same time, it's executing in two different browsers for us, which is pretty cool. Oops, it's because we have this REPL running. So it has passed the execution for both Firefox and Chrome browser. And if you are wondering, the browser doesn't really seems like an Firefox there. It is basically not a Firefox itself. It is actually running on the Chrome project or the Chromium project for us, because I don't really have Firefox within my machine, and I guess that's the reason it is picking up this particular browser. Or maybe I really need to install Firefox in this machine and give a shot and see what happens if there are two browsers being required, and then I'll really know that if this particular feature is really doing what it is intended to. So I'm just gonna do an exit, and this is how the multiple browser option basically executes. So this way, the multiple browser option is done. And the next option, which is very interesting, but I really need to install the latest version of NPM. So if you go to the guide, and there is something called as parallel execution. So this parallel execution requires the Node.js worker. And if I try to run the workers option, something like this, as you can see here, over here. So if I just go to the Visual Studio Code, and if I paste and if I hit enter, you can see it requires minimum node version of 11.7.0 to work with the run workers, because it actually uses this Node.js workers option for the threading control, which I don't really have within my machine, and that's the reason I couldn't be able to execute. Maybe as a part 2 or something of this particular weekend videos, I would probably work on those options, and I will see how it can be even extended. But as of now, we don't really have that option being demoed over here, but I guess it's going to be very, very straightforward code as well. It's going to be very easier. The reason being it's JavaScript, and it is going to execute in multiple threads without any problem. So this should be working without any problem as well. Well, that's about the parallel execution as well, but I'm not showing any demo for now. Just give a shot and see how it worked for you. The last option that we've been trying out today is going to be the reporting option. So what is the reporting option and how to actually run this particular reporting option within your code? The reporting option is very, very straightforward and simple. And if you go all the way to the documentation, and if you see the reporters, multiple reporters are being supported from this particular CodeceptJS tool. The CLI, you have already seen the CLI that it's bringing you some sort of reporting kind of stuff like a verbose information over here. And there is Allure reporting support, which is very interesting. They also support a third-party Allure reporting within them, which is awesome. And also XML reporting, HTML reporting, and multi-reporting. So this XML reporting and HTML reporting are very, very interesting. I have already discussed about that in our Puppeteer course, which is available in Udemy. You can go ahead and watch there. And this is something which is going to be generated for you using MochaAwesome. So this MochaAwesome is very awesome by its name, because it generates a very super simple interactive report for you. But try to install this particular MochaAwesome in this particular project and see how it works. So all I'm going to do is this: npm I of MochaAwesome. So you can see that I'm actually installing the MochaAwesome in a global scope, basically. There we go, it has been installed. And then I'm going to specify the reporter as MochaAwesome while executing the test. So for doing that, I'm just gonna go over here, maybe like run multiple. Let's see if it really works. I don't know. So I'm just gonna select the reporter as MochaAwesome and hit enter. Ooh, so no run provided. So you need to select the run multiple of basic and then reporter as MochaAwesome. Is it executing? Ah, yeah, it's executing. Let's see what's going to basically happen. All right, I probably need to remove that pass from there. Let's go to the code and remove the pass. I'm just going to save this for now. And let's try to run this again. So now I'm expecting the MochaAwesome to be generated for both of these tests. There you go. Something has happened. As you can see, the MochaAwesome report has been generated over here, and there is this HTML report. So now if I just open this in Finder, and you can see that there is an HTML file. So I'm just going to open the HTML file, and you can see that there is this MochaAwesome HTML, and it has shown just one test report. Interestingly, it is not two test report. It is just one test report coming in for us, which is pretty awesome. But only side effect is I was expecting it to have two tests because I'm running in two browsers at the same time. But again, it makes sense because it is not a parallel test execution. We're just running that in multiple browsers. I was expecting it to have two browsers in here to show me the same test executed. But for some reason, it is not showing that. Maybe that's not the parameter to do it for the CodeceptJS, or maybe I'm doing something wrong. But I could see that my actual test is being displayed in the MochaAwesome report without any problem. And it also shows me the time being taken to execute this code. And you can see show failed, show pass and stuff. We can also do a lot of things with this particular CodeceptJS basically. But as of now, this is what I really got for you to show as a demo and see how this particular CodeceptJS basically works on the top of Puppeteer. So that way the reporting is done as well. The last one is the conclusion. So what I personally think about CodeceptJS is this is a very nice wrapper to go with to play around with your existing code or toolings that you have got, something like WebDriver IO or Puppeteer or Protractor. And if you really want to leverage those tooling power with CodeceptJS, if your project is not very mature enough and you can transition into that code, you can probably go with CodeceptJS because it seems to be a very interesting project and it's free and you can use that any point of time. But other than that, I really see the same thing you can achieve with your own code as well. It's not a very big deal, and you can also play around and make the same kind of stuff with this JavaScript based framework because Puppeteer by itself is very mature. It runs on the top of Jasmine, and also Puppeteer runs using Jest, which is also very, very interesting. So you can play around and leverage the power of Jest, snapshotting and other stuff are already there. So you don't really need to require these kind of tool. But if you're really interested, if your company is really looking for something more awesome or create a framework in a shorter period of time, you should consider to go with CodeceptJS and give a shot and see how it works for you. So just give me your thought and comments below in this video and tell me what do you think about this tool, and do you really think that this tool is very interesting? Let me know. So once again, thank you very much for watching this video and have a great weekend. Meet you in our next weekend. Just let me know what you're really looking for the next weekend's topic. We can probably discuss about that.